So I am Andy Davis. I am here to talk about e-commerce talent. I appreciate, firstly, that a lot of you probably spend a lot of your time not wanting to be spoken to by recruiters like me, so the fact that you've showed up, I'm very appreciative of, and it's the last thing on a Thursday as well, so nice to see some friendly faces and competitors as well. So, a little bit about me. I'm the commercial director at Vertical Advantage. We're a recruitment company focused on consumer and e-commerce. Leading UK recruitment company. I wrote that, so we'll take it with a pinch of salt. I've been doing it for 10 years. Our client base is in quite a few areas, but really either brands or service providers, tech providers. There's a bunch of different names there that we work with. For the purposes of today, I'll be talking about roles in e-commerce very broadly speaking, so not going into specifics, but really for us it's anything in performance marketing, direct-to-consumer roles, enterprise sales, SaaS in e-commerce, product, tech, data. So I'm kind of trying to generalize that all into one area. If you want to come and talk to me about specific areas afterwards, just come and grab me. The marketing manager who put this together insisted that I put this photo up. Prior to recruitment, I was a failed rock star for 3 years in a metal band. Again, if you want to talk to me about that afterwards, I may or may not indulge. Yeah, a bit about me, live in Hereford and right out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, here we go. So why should you care? I guess you're here so you care a little bit, but I think there's often a disconnect in terms of how important people say talent is to their business and how much they actually focus on finding that talent, nurturing that talent, bringing it in. Some fairly famous examples here and quotes that they've given over the years about the importance of people. We see it firsthand in terms of businesses who are at a very similar stage of growth and development and the difference in how they accelerate based on who they hire and how strong their hiring process is. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit around some of the trends over the past few years, but also how I think you can hire the best people and how you can build a process that does that. There's also a quote from me there. Again, you might not always want to deal with recruiters, but they can be incredibly helpful in helping your business grow. And this is a stat from CB Insights, a company that surveyed a bunch of VC-backed startups a couple of years ago. They found the number one reason was running out of cash. The second biggest reason they failed is because they didn't get the right people in the right seats at the right time. So I'm sure we're all aware COVID had a huge impact on e-commerce, generally e-commerce talent massively. Last year we placed around 300 people in roles across the UK and Europe, and the average increase was 17%, which is by far the highest average we've seen in a year. Top end of that, we were seeing people going up 45%, and probably this is late 2021, early 22, where things got really kind of crazy at times, ridiculous salary increases. The growth really was happening in a lot of areas, but the big drivers that we saw, particularly in the UK, Amazon and Amazon aggregators, particularly if you don't know about that model, that VC money basically and debt financing, raise a bunch of money, buy as many small Amazon brands as you can and scale up and try and roll them all up. The amount of money that flowed into that place, I think $6 billion in 2021, not quite as much last year, but just caused such a fight for talent and inflation of salaries that even now we're still seeing the effects massively. Ad tech, the rise of retail media, particularly for us, I think seeing US businesses bringing their proposition over to Europe, basing a lot of their benchmarking off US salaries, which sadly have massively outstripped the UK and Europe over the past 5 years, and just completely raising the bar in terms of what they're able to offer, and yeah, very, very challenging to compete. TikTok, mainly in terms of literally TikTok trying to hire everyone in e-commerce in the UK. I think at some point, every single person I spoke to was either interviewing there or being approached about roles there. TikTok have come in obviously gone all in on building their social commerce business and spent a lot of money doing so. I mean, look, just VC money generally, I think in the D2C space particularly, again, a lot of VC money in 2021, 22, huge salaries, lots of senior hiring. All of that has completely cooled off recently, but those are the main combinations that drove all of that growth. Right now, it's definitely calmed down. This year, we've just seen an increase of 6.7%. And actually, even within that, 25% of people that we've placed have taken a pay cut. You know, more redundancies around, various reasons why people might be doing that. 80% moved sideways. Still a good chunk moving for an increase, but as you can see, it's massively shifted. Again, will come as no surprise, but this is just a huge difference in the market now. We did a survey earlier this year. We spoke to about 600 job seekers. And again, I can share this report with anyone who's interested. A lot of insights in there around flexible working, but maximum, 43% of people, maximum they do is 3 days. 26% said 2. So, if you're anything over that, 70% of the market is already out of reach to you. We do have some clients at the minute who are asking people to go in 5 days a week. It's very hard to hire for them. 65% of people won't even apply if you don't say what your remote working policy is. So I just think people often get caught up in the fact that you know what it is internally and you know how that works, but actually if you're not really vocal and visible about that externally, you're completely reducing your top of funnel. You're not going to get people coming to you. And actually another big thing we saw here is that most people just think there's not really enough training on leadership remotely. So if you're thinking about how you can retain and attract the best people, that is a massive part of how that is going to play out. This is something that I've entirely made up myself in combination with conversations with a lot of hiring managers I've had, but I am increasingly convinced that we've kind of created a bit of a leadership gap. High quality graph here based on no evidence whatsoever other than my own thoughts, but just think you've got this period of growth for 2 or 3 years where people's careers have accelerated super fast from maybe 1 or 2 years experience in e-commerce. Let's say 2020, you worked on Amazon. 2021, you basically had the pick of your jobs. Your careers moved really quickly, which is great. I'm not trying to say that's not a good thing. But I think in normal circumstances, that person's progression in terms of salary versus their level of management experience would have looked like that blue line, and now it looks like the red. And I think a lot of the conversations I have with heads of e-commerce, directors of e-commerce is exactly this. You're looking at people with maybe 2 to 4 years experience, 2 to 5 years experience, who typically in years gone by would have had management built in over time, and they've just been massively accelerated as an individual contributor. Now they're being told, well, I'm looking for a salary of X, 60, 70, 80 grand, but actually I've got very limited management experience. So I think there's no easy fix, and it's not a bad thing that salaries have increased generally, but I think you find this real challenge of mid-management, trying to find those people is challenging. This, again, something that I have kind of increasingly come to think that is a very applicable story to recruitment in e-commerce at the minute. Hopefully you've all seen Moneyball. If you haven't, watch it, but also, or read it. It's basically about how you find undervalued talent using data, but also a really clear understanding of what it is that you're looking for. And I think with all the growth that we've experienced over the past few years, it's easy to get caught up in thinking I need to hire this type of person from this type of business and pay whatever money that takes. I think, I'm not trying to say you should not pay people what they're worth, but what I am trying to say is there are ways you can completely outflank your competition by doing a lot of this stuff that I'm going to talk about on the next slide. Deep understanding of unit economics. This is getting a lot better, but it surprises me how many businesses you talk to who don't really understand the core fundamentals of their unit economics. D2C always stands out as an example because I've seen a lot of examples this year of businesses who thought they were making a profit per sale and weren't, that kind of horror story. But I think in terms of how that works links back to recruitment, if you don't know the fundamentals of your business in terms of that stuff, you're not going to be able to plug in talent into that and understand, right, where does this move the dial for me? How does it change things? I think a lot of businesses have a general idea they need to hire, but not actually know what's that impact going to have and how does it fit in with our existing cost base. This kind of follows on from that, but again, sounds obvious. What are the actual outputs? How do we know this person's going to bring success? How do we know that they are actually adding value to our business? And again, I ask a lot of hiring managers this. They don't always know the answer, and I think you need to really define that before you even start thinking about what's the job description, what are we hiring for? Big one for me, I would highly recommend, if you're looking to really hire people based on the skill set they can bring, there is no way that you need to know where they've worked necessarily, all right? It might be important in terms of we need someone who's managed stakeholders in a big environment, we need someone who's got that, but you should still be able to see evidence of that in a CV. In e-commerce, a lot of what you're looking for comes down to this bit, the unit economics, and you should be able to see evidence of that on a CV. It doesn't matter where they've worked. You'll definitely save yourself money if you delete those names. If you're working with a recruiter, ask them to get rid of that stuff. And I think you'll start just seeing people from places you wouldn't expect them to come from and realizing the value in there. Robust process, again, kind of sounds obvious, but why does every stage of the process exist? What is it that you're trying to get out of it? Are people doubling up? Are people asking the same questions? I think it's easy to get, again, you're caught up in the fact that you need to hire and not spend the time actually stepping back and thinking about, like, how do we make sure we're really assessing for what we need, not just, oh, we like this person, I used to work with them, great, let's hire them. This follows on from that. Clear objective criteria, like I would always say, have a scorecard, rank people on the things that matter. Don't come out of the interview going, yeah, seemed like a good guy, I think we could bring them back for another interview. You have to be really robust, and again, you'll find that you will end up hiring people that you might not have done based on their CV, but they've got all the skills. And just like think of your recruitment strategy as a funnel, right? Everyone here will talk about their funnel in terms of customer acquisition all the time, but actually you should be talking about your recruitment strategy in a full funnel way. How do you get interest at the top? How do you stand out? How do you create an amazing experience that brings people through that funnel and converts them really well at the end? And most companies are good at maybe the top bit, some are good at the bottom, very few nail it all the way down. I always like that Brian Chesky Airbnb thing about, like, what does a 10 out of 10 experience look like for everyone who comes to us? Like, that's how you should look at your recruitment funnel. And again, you will out-compete the competition and not have to spend as much money if you do that. So the three things here, think about, where do you find undervalued talent? Are there areas that you're not thinking about looking that you should? Again, I have quite a few thoughts on that I won't go into now, but talk to me if you want to know. How to identify blind CVs, make it objective, and how to attract and retain. And then the future. So when I started doing this bit, I was going to talk about the different skill sets that I think are going to be in demand over the next few years. The truth is no one really knows. I wrote a bunch down, I put them on here. I thought I could just keep going and going and going, because in every single area, there's going to be a new skill set that arises, or there's going to be a progression of the existing skill set that arises. With Amazon, 2 years ago it was just Amazon advertising, now it's DSP, right? You need people who've got that. Everything shifts all the time. These stats are from a Deloitte study. A few years ago, I see them banded around a bit. I'm not sure, completely if that's true, but generally speaking, right, there's a digital skills gap. 11% of workers have digital skills. 68% of companies say they find it hard to hire. Whether or not those are fully accurate is not quite the point, but I don't think that gap closes anytime soon. And I think if you focus on trying to close it or hire people to close it, you kind of miss the point. What you need to do, and these stats are from an e-consultancy like white paper that they put out earlier this year. I'll let you read through them all, but the point is, everyone has these problems. Everyone finds this a challenge. The businesses that do it best are the ones that develop this stuff in-house. And as much as I'm a recruiter, my interest is to get you to come to me. The companies that do best are the ones that identify the fact that maybe social commerce is going to be the massive thing next year. You can't go and hire loads of social commerce people, really, unless you go to TikTok and pay a load of money. You need to build it. You need to develop programs that allow people to have those skills in-house, give people the free time to go and learn those skills, send them on workshops. The same comes for, technical roles. The same comes for Amazon-specific roles, for growth. Like, I think growth marketing, growth hacking will continue to be huge, but you've got to create the environment that fosters those skills, not think you can just go and buy them. And then finally, just summarizing key takeaways for me from this. Great tunnel is fundamental to growth. Understand your funnel, really think about that entire process. How well are you nailing it? Where are the things you can improve? There's definitely value to be found. There is such a huge discrepancy in what people are paid versus what they can deliver, and I'm sure you probably all see it at times, but you can see people on 30, 40% more salaries in certain instances, who I would say the higher salary can be outmaneuvered completely by the other just because of where they've come from, how undervalued they are. So really think about that and think about, the name doesn't matter. Skills gaps will always exist, so if you're trying to think about how you solve that and buy it in, it's not going to happen. And that's where you need to lead and don't follow. You've got to be the place that develops the talent, not the place that just goes and buys it from everywhere else all the time, because it's not sustainable. That's me. Someone's got a microphone if anyone wants to ask any questions. Thanks for listening.